breaking updates coming in amid the row over Canada's remarks on diplomats. India has given a strongly worded response. India, in its response, says Trudeau is working for vote bank politics and has rejected the claims that the Canadian government has made, calling it a preposterous remark being made by Canada. So that's a response that has come in a strongly worded statement by India. As Trudeau escalated it, India has hit back. My colleague Rishabh is joining us on the broadcast with the details of that statement from India. It started with Canada, Rishabh, but now India giving a response. Take us through the details of what India has said.
Well, Canada has sent a diplomatic note from Ottawa to New Delhi asking India that India's High Commissioner Sanjay Verma and other diplomats are person of interest in an ongoing investigation. The investigation basically about killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in June 2022. Since then, in last 1 year, we have seen diplomatic ties being soured between India and Canada. But now, when we were looking at things getting de-escalated after the junior minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada said that Canada respect India's territorial integrity, this move by Trudeau government is another escalation, and India has hit back very strongly. India, in its statement, has very categorically said, an official statement from External Affairs Ministry say that yes, we have received a diplomatic communication to which we want to say that this is preposterous and it's far from reality.
Okay.
A, B, they haven't given us a single evidence that suggests that India was involved in killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The Indian statement goes on to say that Sanjay Verma happens to be India's senior most serving diplomat and has served in important countries like Turkey.
And making
Italy,
a charge like
China,
this on what basis, isn't it, Rishabh? That question still remains. I request you to stay with us. We have Professor Madhav Nalapal also joining us on the broadcast. Professor Madhav, India has responded to what claims Canada had made, and India has called it absolutely preposterous.
Well, the MEA has made a necessary and dignified response to a, as you said, preposterous charge. The fact of the matter is, why is the Canadian government under Prime Minister Trudeau so intent on damaging relations between India and the West? So, of course, one country would be delighted, China, so would Pakistan, so would some other countries with extremist tendencies, authoritarian tendencies, but it would damage the security interests of the West, and while not helping the security interests of India at all. So I think it's very important to understand that I think we need to go for an investigation of our own and find out the persons of interest who are behind the systematic campaign of the Trudeau government to damage the relationship between India and the Western countries. And you have some people in the United States who have fallen for that, and you have others also who have fallen for that without looking at the facts. And the fact is, as you correctly said, the Canadians have not produced a shred of evidence linking in to that particular whatever happened or didn't happen. And so the question is, why are they fabricating this whole thing? So who are the people of interest in the Canadian government who would like to see relationship not only with Canada, but through Canada? And you know, Trudeau has been going on a kind of crusade across the NATO bloc and different countries, crusading against India. So I think that it is important to understand who the persons of interest are behind this crusade, because this crusade is against the West, it's against India, it's against the democracies. And on whose behalf? I mean, you know, on whose behalf? An individual who's known to have financial and other links to groups involved in violence and terror, an individual known to have backed terrorists publicly, and forget about privately, publicly in several fora, a lot of which is available online. So basically, you're going to the extent of framing India, the government of India, for the so-called attempt to assassinate a terrorist, a facilitator, a man who has clearly facilitated terrorism and who is against the sovereignty and integrity of India. So this is beyond reasonable understanding. There needs to be investigation and persons of interest in Canada are identified and named.
Absolutely, and he's souring relations with India for what? Some support amid his failing popularity. Professor Nalapa, thank you for joining us. Let me go back to Rishabh. Rishabh, India has also said in its statement in as many words that not a shred of evidence has been shared by Canada. They're making big claims and India has asked for any details if there's any truth to it, but there's no evidence whatsoever that has been provided.
Well, definitely. Let's talk about 18th September 2023 when Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, on the floor of the House in Ottawa, in Canadian Parliament, accused India and Indian agencies to be part of the conspiracy that resulted in killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Since then, India has been saying that give us the evidence that you have and we'll respond to it. Till date, there hasn't been a single evidence, even an iota of evidence that has been shared by Canada to India. In response, India has sent dossiers after dossiers, at least a dozen times in the last 5 years, about anti-India elements who are taking refuge in Canada. And the whole request from India has fallen to deaf ears and Canada has failed to act on that. Having said that, in last 1 year, there have been instance after instance where Canadian government has made allegations against India, but India has always requested that give us evidence and we'll act. Till date, there hasn't been any response to the request of evidence from India. In the statement today as well, External Affairs Ministry very categorically said that there is no evidence that has been shared against any Indian national or any Indian agency or authority on which India can act upon. It all began saying that there are credible evidence, then there were no evidence that was shared, then there were credible allegation, then there were circumstantial evidence talked about, but till date there hasn't been anything that has been put forward even by the investigating agencies. Even the people, the Canadian authorities, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have arrested, they have not been able to, connect the people arrested from Indian agencies, and the people who have been arrested have been overstaying in Canada for over 2 years, and the Canadian Interior Ministry, the Home Ministry of Canada, failed to act on that as well. That showcases that how fragile the whole evidence against India word is from Canada. Having said that, India has very categorically told Canada that your High Commission has been working as political agent of anti-India elements and your anti-India activities in New Delhi.
Yes, and India has pointed that out as well, Rishabh. Time and again, I request you to stay with us. We have a strategic expert, Pathikrit Payne, also joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us. The statement that had come in from Canada does not really come as a surprise. India has responded time and again. This time as well, India has said that despite asking for evidence, there is nothing that has come forth from the Canadian government. It has gone on to say that Trudeau government provides space to violent extremists and terrorists to harass, threaten and intimidate Indian diplomats.
Well, this has almost become a pattern for Canada. And as the elections, come sooner in Canada by next year, you would see some activities of the Trudeau government which will be extremely anti-India, perhaps for the sake of keeping the Khalistani lobby happy. And I don't understand that on one hand, they expect governments of countries like India or other countries which are countries of global south to have certain kind of norms to follow when it comes to dealing or treating their diplomats. But when it comes to countries like Canada, or even I would say most of the countries of global north, they do not reciprocate in that manner. I mean, terming the Indian envoy as a person of interest is against the diplomatic norms, because the diplomatic cadre has immunity. So I think Trudeau does not act on its own. There are long and powerful lobbies who work in unison. If you look at the entire approach of the Five Eyes intelligence, the manner in which they have allowed violent extremists groups which are secessionist in nature to operate in their countries against the interest of India. It shows the duplicity and the hypocrisy of most of these countries, that on one hand they talk about territorial integrity and sovereignty and respect for sovereignty. They talk about waging war against terror, but they do not apply the same yardsticks when it comes to countries of the global south, including a country like India, which has emerged as a voice of global south. As India progresses, becomes a $5 trillion economy, becomes a major voice to reckon with, you would see these kind of frictions and deliberate resistance coming from the global north countries, front-ended by Canada. But I would say it's not just Canada. There are other major powers which are working in unison, including the approach of United States of America and how they deal with Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, who openly threatens.
Yes. Yes, and this, this smear campaign by the Canadian government, by the Trudeau government, stands exposed because India has made it clear that we've asked for evidence. Not a shred of evidence has been provided to us. Thank you for joining us with your expertise on the matter.